It was 8:47 p.m. when I made the dumbest, but also the smartest decision of my marriage. My wife had texted me an hour earlier. Working late again? Don't wait up for dinner. She worked at a marketing firm downtown, nothing glamorous, just corporate grind. Normally I wouldn't have questioned it, but something about the way those words sat on my screen felt wrong. Maybe it was the again? Maybe it was the way she put a period after it, like finality. Or maybe it was the fact that for 3 months she'd been working late more often than being home for bedtime stories with our kids. So I grabbed takeout from her favorite Thai place, green curry, extra basil, the way she loved it, and drove 20 minutes into the city. Not because I didn't trust her, not because I wanted to spy, but because I wanted to be the thoughtful husband, the guy who shows up. And I swear to God, I wish I hadn't. When the elevator doors opened onto her floor, the building was almost silent. Rows of cubicles stood dark, monitors asleep, chairs pushed in. Only one office glowed at the end of the corridor, hers. The glass was fogged with condensation from the AC, but I could see shadows moving inside. I balanced the paper bag in one hand and knocked lightly. No answer. Then I heard it. A man's laugh, deep, unguarded, the kind of laugh that doesn't belong in overtime spreadsheets. My stomach dropped. I knocked again, harder, still nothing. So I turned the handle. It wasn't locked, and there they were. Her blazer was hanging off the back of a chair. She was half turned, flushed, hair loose in a way I hadn't seen in months. And right beside her, leaning too close, shirt sleeves rolled up, was a man I'd only seen in passing at company picnics. His hand was on the desk, almost touching hers. The air was thick with something you can't mistake once you've lived with someone long enough. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the food. I didn't even slam the door. I just set the takeout bag down on the edge of her desk, right between them, and said one line. My voice flat, steady, colder than I knew I could sound. "Dinner's here. Don't let it get cold." The look on her face will stay with me forever. Her lips parted, eyes wide like she'd been caught stealing oxygen. His face went sheet white. For a moment, all three of us just froze. Then I turned and walked out. My shoes echoed down that empty hallway, louder than her voice when she finally called my name. I didn't look back. That night, sitting in my car, I realized something important. You don't have to explode to end a marriage. Sometimes silence is the sharpest weapon. Sometimes walking away without a scene cuts deeper than screaming ever could. And if you've read this far, pause for a second, because stories like mine, they're everywhere. If you want more raw, unfiltered stories, people are too scared to tell out loud. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and share your thoughts. It helps way more than you think, and I promise, you'll never be bored here. Back to that night. I didn't go home right away. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, but my mind was razor clear. I sat there and thought about our kids asleep in their rooms, about the years we'd built, about the 1,000 tiny lies that must have stacked up to bring us here. I thought about the way she used to look at me, and how long it had been since she had. And then for the first time in 15 years of marriage, I opened the Notes app on my phone and started documenting. Time, place, what I saw, what I heard, what I said. No accusations, no rants, just evidence. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I knew I couldn't unsee what I'd just seen. The truth had finally stepped into the light, and once it does, it never goes back in the dark. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there with my phone glowing on the nightstand, every muscle in my body tight, but my brain locked into overdrive. The thing about betrayal is, you expect rage, or tears, or smashing plates, but when it actually hits, you're just hollow, like someone vacuum sealed your insides. So instead of raging, I did what I've always done when life tries to knock me flat. I wrote it down. Every detail, every timestamp, every word. 8:47 p.m. Entered building. 8:53. Inside her office. One man present. Physical proximity. Witnessed inappropriate interaction. Set dinner bag on desk. Statement made. Left without confrontation. Cold, almost clinical. I wasn't documenting feelings. I was documenting facts. Because facts matter, feelings get twisted. Facts stay solid. I scrolled back through the family shared calendar. Sure enough, her client meeting had a little padlock icon next to it. Private. She'd never locked events before. Red flag number 1, officially logged. Then I checked our Apple family sharing. I hadn't looked at the location pings in months, but there it was. Her iPhone had been at office 5 nights in the last 2 weeks. Always the same hours, always overlapping with late work. Red flag number 2. Credit card statement came next. 2 charges at a boutique hotel bar less than 3 blocks from her office. Same dates as those late nights. 1 receipt time-stamped at 11:42 p.m. She doesn't even like cocktails. Red flag number 3. I screenshotted everything. Sent copies to my cloud drive. No melodrama. Just a quiet chain of custody that nobody could argue with later. By 1 p.m., my heart was racing too hard to trust myself. So I called the only person who could anchor me. My oldest friend, Mark. He answered groggy. Kids screaming in the background. But when he heard my voice, he snapped awake. "Don't do anything stupid," he said first. Not what happened. Not, "Are you okay?" Just that. Because he knows me. He knows the part of me that wants to confront, explode, burn it all down. "I'm not," I said. "I just need to stay clear." So he talked me down. 20 minutes about our high school days, about how he once failed to parallel park during a date, about anything but the thing sitting in my chest. It worked. My hands stopped shaking. My breathing slowed. By the time we hung up, I wasn't on fire anymore. I was ice. The next morning, she was already at the kitchen counter, coffee steaming, scrolling her phone like nothing had happened. She looked up and smiled too wide, kissed me on the cheek like she hadn't been tangled up with someone else 12 hours earlier. "You slept okay?" she asked. "Fine," I said. And I meant it in a twisted way. Because I had a plan now. All day at work, I kept replaying her face when I walked into that office. The panic, the guilt, the shock. Not because I wanted to torture myself, but because it was proof. Proof I wasn't imagining things. Proof she knew exactly what she'd done. That night, I didn't accuse her. Didn't even mention it. I came home with groceries, cooked dinner, helped our son with his math homework. Played normal. Because the one thing cheaters never expect isn't anger. It's silence. They know how to fight. They don't know how to face a ghost. After she went upstairs to shower, I pulled out the takeout receipt from the Thai place. I slipped it into a folder with the hotel bar screenshots, the location pings, and my note from the night before. I labeled the folder simply Thursday, August 10th. Then I slid it into my desk drawer. I wasn't building a scene. I was building a case. And as I turned off the lights that night, one thought settled in. The truth doesn't need noise. It just needs witnesses. The morning after my late-night documentation spree, she was suddenly the sweetest she'd been in months. Pancakes for the kids, an extra coffee waiting for me, a playful text at noon. Hope your day isn't too crazy. If you've ever been cheated on, you know that sweetness. It's not affection, it's guilt dressed up in whipped cream. I didn't bite. I smiled back, said thanks, and logged the text in my notes. Over the next week, the signs multiplied. She wore the same silk blouse twice in a row. Claimed it came fresh from the cleaners. But I'd seen the coffee stain near the cuff that hadn't been there before. Her supposed late-night meeting was on the calendar in Conference Room B. Only problem? Conference Room B had been booked all day for Zoom training, and I confirmed that with one quick glance at the publicly shared calendar. Then there was her phone. She never used to lock it at home. Suddenly, Face ID only, and she started carrying her work bag into the bathroom. That was the giveaway. When you start hiding your toothbrush behind your back, it means there's a reason. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was observant. There's a difference. But here's where it shifted from hurt husband to strategic husband. I booked a consultation with a family lawyer, not to start divorce papers yet, but to understand the battlefield. And let me tell you, if you ever even suspect infidelity and you have kids, get legal advice before you get emotional. She was a small woman with sharp glasses and sharper words. She didn't let me ramble. She asked me for documents, assets, income streams, custody expectations. When I admitted I hadn't confronted my wife yet, she leaned back and said, "Good. Don't. Every angry text, every shouting match, every screenshot of you losing your temper. It weakens your case. Document facts. Protect the children. Protect your money. Stay calm." That last part, stay calm, hit me harder than anything else. Because calm wasn't just strategy. Calm was survival. So I started shifting quietly. I redirected part of my paycheck into a separate account. Not hidden, just separate. I began scanning all the bills and joint documents into a digital folder. I backed up photos, medical records, even the kids' school information. If a storm was coming, I wasn't going to be caught without an umbrella. And while I was preparing on paper, I was also preparing in my head. I booked a therapy session, not marriage counseling, not yet. Just me, one-on-one. Because here's the truth. Betrayal rots you from the inside if you don't drain it out. You start second-guessing your worth, your memory, even your sanity. A therapist doesn't fix it, but they give you a place to dump the poison. By the time the session ended, I realized something important. I didn't need to win an argument. I needed to win clarity. Meanwhile, at home, her sweetness turned cloying. She started leaving sticky notes on the fridge. "Love you, babe." She offered to fold my laundry, a chore she hadn't touched in years. One night, she even suggested we reconnect, lit candles, poured wine, slid close on the couch, and the entire time, all I could see in my head was that other man's hand leaning on her desk, almost touching hers. It's a special kind of hell, pretending you don't know what you know, but it's also power. Because while she played house, I played chess. I knew the truth. I knew the lies, and soon I'd know the outcome. The hardest part of betrayal isn't the lie itself. It's pretending you don't see the lie unraveling in real time. I kept my face straight, my voice steady, but inside I was measuring every inconsistency, every crack. And eventually I decided I needed proof that wasn't just circumstantial. So I set up what I call a kind trap. No screaming, no games that would traumatize the kids, just a controlled test. One Thursday morning, as she rushed around the kitchen with her travel mug and laptop bag, I casually said, "Hey, I can drive you to your late meeting tonight. My schedule's light. I'll be nearby anyway." Her head snapped up faster than I expected. "Oh, no, you don't need to. I'll just Uber. It's easier." I smiled, kissed her on the forehead, and said, "Maybe, but I'd love the company on the way." She forced a laugh. "Well, okay, if you insist." That night, I pulled up outside her office building. She smoothed her skirt, applied a quick dab of lipstick in the visor mirror. But 15 minutes into the ride, I got a fake urgent call from work. I cursed under my breath, told her I had to turn back. "You'll still make it on time. Just grab a ride share." Annoyed, she sighed, kissed me lightly, and hopped out. I watched her through the mirror as she ordered a ride. My phone buzzed a minute later. Uber, en route to destination. And here's where technology doesn't lie. Family sharing pinged her at her office building for exactly 6 minutes. Then the dot moved, not toward a conference hall, not toward a client's office. Straight to a boutique hotel bar 3 blocks away, the same one from the credit card charges. I didn't follow, didn't storm in. Instead, I screen recorded the location history, captured the timeline. At 7:18 p.m., she arrived. At 10:42 p.m., she left, alone. Or at least, her phone left with her. The next morning, she was radiant, too radiant, humming while she poured cereal, tapping her spoon against the mug like a woman who just had her batteries recharged. That's when the universe handed me something bigger, an unexpected ally. At pickup, while our son tied his shoelaces, Another parent, a guy I vaguely knew, mid-50s, always in a blazer, leaned in. He worked at the same company as my wife. He lowered his voice. "You didn't hear this from me," he said, eyes darting around. "But check your wife's org chart. If she's involved with who I think she is, that's her direct supervisor. Company policy doesn't play around with that." I froze. Supervisor. That changed everything. Because cheating is one thing, but supervisor subordinate? That's a loaded gun for HR. Later that night, when the kids were in bed, I opened her company's handbook online. Clear as day. Romantic relationships between supervisors and direct reports are prohibited due to conflicts of interest and potential for coercion. Violations will result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. So it wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was leverage. Not for blackmail, I wasn't interested in revenge porn or screaming at the rooftop, but leverage for truth, for accountability. I sat there in the dark, staring at the glow of the PDF handbook, and realized she hadn't just cheated on me, she had put her entire career on the line, and she had no idea I knew. The day after the hotel bar confirmation, I drew a line in the sand that nobody could see but me. It started with money, because money is where chaos breeds. Over lunch, I called the bank from my car and converted our everything bucket checking into 2 streams: bills only, mortgage, utilities, kids' tuition, auto drafts, and personal. My paycheck would hit the personal first, then auto transfer the exact bills amount to the house account every 2 weeks. No surprises, no starving the mortgage, no punitive games, just control. I set up text alerts for charges over $50 on the joint card and lowered the daily ATM limit. I wasn't trapping her. I was stabilizing the ship so the kids wouldn't feel the wave. Then documents. I pulled the fireproof box from the closet and laid everything on the dining table after the kids were asleep. Birth certificates, social security cards, passports, marriage license, titles, the kids' vaccination records, insurance policies, the will we swore we'd update and never did. I scanned each one to an encrypted folder and labeled them like a librarian who never forgives chaos. I slid the originals back where they lived so nothing would look disturbed. I added my timeline, tie receipt, elevator timestamp for my parking ticket, screenshots of location pings, the hotel bar charges, my notes entries with dates and times. Paper doesn't blink. Paper doesn't gaslight. I made another folder that nobody but a judge would ever see. Budgets, the list of extracurriculars with the days and pickup times, summer camp registration emails, pediatrician contacts. If I had to argue for the kids' stability, I wouldn't do it with emotion. I'd do it with proof that I was already doing the job. When the house was quiet, I sat at the kitchen island and practiced sentences into my empty coffee mug because the mug couldn't flinch. I wrote them down so they wouldn't come out as a roar later. You're not safe with your supervisor, and he is not safe with you. I will be informing HR on Monday. That's not a threat. It's a policy reality. We will separate with dignity. The kids' routine will not change. I will not argue about what I saw. This is not a debate. I read them out loud until the words lost their heat. Then I locked my phone, breathed, and texted her one message from the living room while she showered upstairs. We need to talk Saturday at 10. That was it. No subject line, no dagger emojis, no "we need to talk" ellipses that drag someone to the gallows. Just a time. Friday, I set the field for Saturday. I called my parents and asked if they could take the kids to breakfast and a movie. I told them nothing ugly. We need to handle some house stuff, I said. They didn't push. My mother said, "Of course," in the voice you keep for emergencies and funerals, and the day your son's car went silent on the phone. At work, I drafted 2 emails and saved both as unsent. The first was to HR, neutral, documented, no adjectives. I have concerns about a supervisor-subordinate relationship that may violate policy. I can provide dates and materials upon request, and will protect all employees from public exposure. Please advise on reporting procedure. The second was to the man in her office. I didn't intend to send it, but I needed to know what it would look like to speak to him in a language he'd understand. You are my wife's supervisor. This is a conflict of interest and a direct policy violation. I will not contact you again. All further communication will be through HR. I read it once, deleted the draft, then emptied the trash. He didn't deserve a single word from me that wasn't procedural. That night, she floated through the kitchen like she'd won something. She asked if we could invite friends over next weekend. She leaned on the counter, brushing crumbs into her palm, eyes glossy with a light I didn't recognize anymore. Saturday morning okay for a grocery run? She asked. I said yes. It was easier than telling her she'd be across the table answering for the everything she'd broken. Before bed, I packed 2 small overnight backpacks for the kids. Nothing dramatic, just hoodies, snacks, favorite books, the stuffed dinosaur that our son claims protects the house. I slid a copy of the insurance cards into each bag because the version of me who handles disasters knows not to trust the version of me who shakes. Around midnight, I sat in the hallway between the kids' rooms and listened to their breathing. It sounds sentimental, but it was calibration. Betrayal distorts your sense of scale. Listening to them sleep reset me to the only metric that mattered. Whatever happened Saturday at 10 could not make them collateral damage. If my pride had to eat itself, so be it. The kids would still eat pancakes at 9 and play soccer at 2. Saturday came gray and clean, the kind of neutral morning that doesn't help or hurt. I made waffles. She complimented them like a woman on a cooking show. At 9:15, my parents honked. The kids tumbled out the door with backpacks and a double check about whether they could get extra butter on the popcorn. I hugged them longer than was normal. Then I let them go, because that's the job. At 9:32, she noticed the manila folder on the table and the pen beside it. Her eyes pinged from the folder to my face and back again. She didn't ask. She knew. At 9:40, she texted someone from the laundry room. Fingers moving quick, the way your hands move when you're building a wall out of words. At 9:55, she came back to the kitchen and said, too evenly, "What's this about?" 10, I said. We start at 10. I poured water into 2 glasses. Not wine, not coffee. Water, because we weren't negotiating tastes. We were acknowledging facts. She sat. I sat. I put the folder between us like a traffic cone. I'm not here to yell, I said. I'm here to fix what can be fixed and separate what can't. I opened the folder. I didn't slide anything across yet. I kept my hands on either side so the paper wouldn't shake. I told her what I had, not in narration, in timestamps. August 10th, 8:47 p.m. Elevator, 8:53. Office, man, present. Statement made, exit. Hotel bar charges on these dates, times. Location history corroborating. She swallowed, then smiled the kind of smile you wear to a dental appointment when the drill is already in your mouth. This is a misunderstanding, she said. No, I said. It's a conflict of interest with your supervisor. On Monday, HR hears it from you or from me. Either way, they hear it. She blinked slow. She said my name like it was a bargaining chip. She mentioned the kids. She mentioned stress. She said the phrase emotional support, like she was reading it off a pamphlet. I let the sentences drop between us and evaporate. Then I laid out the plan like a table setting, interim separation, parenting schedule that mirrors the current week. Financial accounts stabilize so bills go out like clockwork. Therapy for both of us separately. HR notification with a simple, truthful statement from her by noon Monday. If she refused, I would file and deliver the documents myself. I won't weaponize the kids, I said. I also won't be married to a secret. She looked at the folder one more time and finally stopped smiling. There's a silence people make when they see the end. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It's just the absence of the next lie. That silence filled our kitchen like fog. I let it sit there because I had already chosen calm over chaos and witnesses over noise. I had already moved the money, stored the papers, packed the backpacks, set the time. At 10 to 1 a.m., the conversation began. The folder between us might as well have been a loaded weapon. She sat across the table, her face shifting between practiced innocence and the sharp edges of panic. I wasn't interested in theatrics. I was interested in clarity. I'm not asking for explanations, I said, voice even. I'm stating facts. I know where you've been. I know who you've been with, and I know he's your supervisor. Her eyes flicked up at me, then away. It's not what you think. That line, I said quietly, is for movies, not for a kitchen table where our kids just ate waffles. For a moment she tried the tactic of silence, letting the weight of her refusal to speak hang there like it might make me doubt myself. But I had timestamps, receipts, screenshots, policy statements. I had a story that didn't depend on her words. Finally, she leaned back, folded her arms. What do you want? It was the wrong question. It's not about what I want, I answered. It's about what comes next. HR needs to know. The kids need stability. And I need honesty. Her face twisted, somewhere between defiance and disbelief. You'd ruin me? I'm not ruining you, I said, calm. You did that when you crossed the line at work. I'm protecting myself, and I'm protecting our children from chaos. The word children landed like a stone. For the first time, she blinked, and her jaw slackened. She knew custody was the battlefield she didn't want to open. I laid out the plan. We separate cleanly without screaming matches. Parenting schedule mirrors what the kids already know. Financials stay steady. Bills get paid. She reports the relationship to HR before Monday noon. If not, I file. The silence that followed was so heavy I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. She tapped a fingernail against her glass of water, the sound like a metronome for nerves. I can't just throw away my career, she whispered. You already did, I said. You just haven't told them yet. That broke her composure. Tears welled. They weren't the cleansing kind. They were survival tears, bargaining tears. It was, he listened to me. He made me feel seen. I nodded once. I'm sure he did. But you don't fix being unseen at home by detonating your office. You fix it by talking. And you never gave me that chance. Her face crumpled, then hardened again like steel being quenched and reheated. If you tell HR, I'm finished. No, I said. If I don't, and they find out another way, you're finished. This way, you at least walk in with a shred of control. At that, she dropped her gaze to the folder. She didn't touch it, didn't flip it open, just stared like the weight of paper could crush her chest. I gave her until Sunday night. Told her I'd hold off on sending the email until then. I wasn't bluffing. I had it queued, time-stamped, drafted. All it needed was one click. That weekend, the air in the house was brittle. She was syrupy sweet with the kids, almost manic in her attention. She suggested family movie night, extra ice cream, board games we hadn't touched in years. I played along, not for her, but for them. They laughed and snuggled between us on the couch. But behind their heads, her eyes kept darting to mine, searching for weakness, for an opening, for mercy. She didn't get it. On Sunday at 11:52 p.m., my phone buzzed. An email notification popped up, forwarded from her work account. Subject: Disclosure of relationship. In accordance with company policy, I am reporting. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but the first domino had tipped. She came downstairs a few minutes later, eyes swollen. I sent it, I nodded. Good. She waited for something more, for comfort, for forgiveness, for a hand to hold. But I wasn't that man anymore. I was the man who knew, the man who planned, the man who would not be blindsided again. And in that silence between us I realized the marriage might not survive, but I would. Monday morning hit like a storm. At 9:14 a.m., her company's HR department acknowledged her disclosure. I wasn't copied, of course, but she left her laptop open on the dining table when she went to grab coffee. The subject line glowed across the screen. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Please be available for a follow-up meeting this afternoon." When she saw me glance at it, she slammed the lid down a second too late. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. By mid-afternoon, she texted, "In a meeting. Don't know how long." Then radio silence. At 6:07 p.m., she finally came home. Pale. Moving like her body weighed twice as much as usual. She poured herself a glass of wine before even taking off her shoes. "They're investigating," she said flatly. "They pulled access badges, meeting logs, expense reports. They interviewed me. They'll interview him tomorrow." Her voice cracked on him. I didn't flinch. "What happens next?" I asked. She laughed bitterly. "Depends how much they want to make an example out of us." "Not us. You." But I let it hang in the air. The rest of the week unfolded like clockwork. HHR moved fast. Tuesday afternoon, I got a text from an old acquaintance who still worked at her company. "Dude, people are talking. Not good." Apparently, her supervisor was escorted out by security that very morning. His accounts locked. His name scrubbed from the org chart by noon. By Thursday, whispers spread through her circle of friends, half concern, half gossip. Some offered sympathy. Others just wanted details. She withdrew into herself, moving around the house like a shadow. Meanwhile, I was building my exit plan, piece by piece. I met with my lawyer again, this time with documents in hand. She went through them line by line, nodding. "You're in strong shape. Custody leans your way, given your preparation and stability. Financials are protected. You're not acting rashly, judges like that." I also met with a financial advisor, someone Mark had recommended. We mapped out 2 paths. One where I carried the mortgage solo and she bought out later, and one where we sold and split clean. I didn't care which. What mattered was that I wouldn't be trapped. At night, after the kids were asleep, she would hover near me. Sometimes she'd try small talk, sometimes outright plead. "You're really going through with this?" she asked one night, voice raw. "I'm not the one who broke it," I said. "I'm just refusing to pretend it's whole." She cried loudly enough that I worried the kids would wake. I didn't comfort her. That's not cruelty. That's boundary. The kids blissfully stayed shielded. To them, nothing had changed. Soccer practice, bedtime stories, Saturday pancakes. It all went on. That was my mission. Protect their normal, even as mine collapsed. The irony was that at work, people probably thought I was unraveling. I showed up sharper, quieter, more focused. My boss even said, "Whatever you're doing, keep it up." If only he knew. By Friday, HR made their decision. Her supervisor terminated for policy violations, effective immediately. She, reassigned, stripped of remote privileges, placed under mandatory ethics training and review. She told me through clenched teeth, like each word was a nail driven into her tongue. "I've been humiliated," she spat. "No," I corrected. "You've been held accountable." That weekend, I filed. Not with rage, not with fanfare. Just quietly, at the courthouse. The way you file taxes or renew a license. Dissolution of marriage. Custody arrangement proposed. Financial separation documented. When the clerk stamped the papers, I felt no triumph, no revenge. Just a strange, heavy relief. Like dropping a weight I'd been carrying so long, I forgot my spine wasn't supposed to hurt. At home, she sensed it. She hovered even more, trying to soften edges, trying to negotiate emotions. But I was past that. She had lost her lover, her position, her narrative. She still had her children, and I would never take that from her, but she no longer had me, and she knew it. The divorce papers were filed, a case number, a docket, a judge assigned, cold bureaucratic language for the end of 15 years. There were no fireworks, no shouting across lawyer tables, just silence. And in that silence, I found something I hadn't felt in months. Space to breathe. She moved through the house like a ghost, still made school lunches, still packed backpacks, still hummed while folding laundry. But the hum was hollow now, She avoided eye contact, as though every glance was a mirror she couldn't bear to see. The kids noticed only what I allowed them to. Two parents who still showed up, still drove carpools, still clapped at soccer games. They didn't see the weight under the surface. That was my gift to them, shielding them from the storm we created. When the court date came, we sat across from each other like strangers. She tried one last plea. We could try counseling. We could fix it. I looked her in the eyes and answered simply, we can co-parent. That's what we can fix. The judge reviewed the custody plan, praised its stability, and signed off. 50-50, alternating weeks, with holidays split evenly. The routine they knew remained intact. That was the only victory that mattered. Her career never recovered. She stayed with the company, but in a diminished role. Stripped of authority, her name now whispered with caution instead of respect. I didn't gloat. I didn't spread rumors. I didn't need to. Consequences have a way of finding their mark without my hand guiding them. As for me, I moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment 10 minutes away. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The first night alone, I unpacked slowly. A lamp, a stack of books, the kids' artwork taped on the fridge. I sat at the kitchen table with a microwave dinner and texted them goodnight. Love you. Sweet dreams. See you Friday. Their replies popped up with emojis and misspellings, and I smiled in the quiet. In therapy, I finally said the words out loud. She didn't break me. She freed me. It sounded strange, even to me. But it was true. I'd spent years ignoring small lies, brushing aside little gut feelings, telling myself marriage was about endurance. What I learned is that endurance without honesty is just slow erosion. I didn't burn her world down. I didn't scream. I didn't become the monster she could point to as proof of her choices. Instead, I became steady, documented, patient, and in that steadiness, I rebuilt myself. People sometimes ask if I regret not exploding, not teaching her a lesson. But here's the thing, her lesson didn't come from me. It came from the collapse of everything she gambled with. Her lover gone, her reputation damaged, her career clipped, her family split. That's not my vengeance. That's her karma. I don't celebrate it. I don't mourn it. I just accept it. Now, months later, I wake up without checking her calendar, without analyzing receipts, without scanning location logs. I wake up, make coffee, lace my shoes, and run along the river while the sun comes up. I call my kids before school, hear their voices bubbling with stories about teachers and friends. I go to work, I focus, I live. The ring box sits in the back of a drawer. I don't open it. I don't need to. It's not a wound anymore, it's a scar. And scars remind you that pain can heal if you let it. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone who finds themselves where I was, it's this. Don't ignore your gut. Don't wait for the perfect proof to believe what your body already knows. And when the truth comes, choose dignity. Choose clarity. Choose the path that lets you sleep at night, even if it means sleeping alone. Because sometimes walking away without a scene is the loudest statement you'll ever make. And I walked away.